Yes, we are in live now. Very good morning to all the participants, and it is a great pleasure to have you all here for Knowledge 4.0 webinar series, which is one of the unique initiative of Chennai Institute of Technology under the guidance of our Honorable Chairman Shri P. Sriram, a successful first generation entrepreneur, a well-known industrialist, and managing director of MK Group of Companies. Under Knowledge 4.0 series, we have been conducting webinar series such as Technical Webinar Series, Research Webinar Series, Career Guidance Webinar Series, Innovation Webinar Series, and Alumni Webinar Series. And today we have a technical webinar series titled Tissue Engineering and Organ Printing, which is going to be handled by Dr. P. Gopinath, Associate Professor, IIT Roorkee. And Chennai Institute of Technology was established in the year 2010 by our Honorable Chairman Shri P. Sriram, and now our institute is being ranked within top 10 institutes among private engineering colleges in Tamil Nadu. And now I request Ms. Harini of first year EEE department to welcome our speaker.
Hey guys, this is Harini S. Persing, first year EEE from the Chennai Institute of Technology. Today, as we all know, the webinar topic is tissue engineering and organ printing, and is going to be presented by Dr. P. Gopinath, Associate Professor, IIT Roorkee. His areas of interest are cancer nanotechnology, drug delivery, biomaterials, bioimaging, tissue engineering, and engineering nanotechnology. He obtained his bachelor and master's degree in biotechnology and microbiology from Srimad Andavan Arts and Science College, Bharathidasan University, Trichy. He obtained his PhD in biotechnology from the Indian Institute of Technology, Guwahati. He also worked as a postdoctoral research associate in University of Rochester Medical Center, Rochester, New York, USA, and as a senior research fellow in IIT Guwahati, Department of Biotechnology. He holds various membership in American Chemical Society USA, Royal Society of Chemistry UK, Indian Nanoscience Society, Indian Society of Chemists and Biologists, Indian Academy of Biomedical Sciences, and much more. The books authored by him are Cancer Nanotheranostics, Fabrication of Nanofibers for Dye Degradation, Carbon Nanodots and Nanoparticles for Bioapplication, Nanoparticles for Biomedical Application. The book edited by him are 3D printing technology in nanomedicine and intelligent nanomaterials for drug delivery application. He delivered special lectures in nanoremediation, nanotoxicology, cancer nanotechnology, etc. He supervised various PhD projects and encouraged and supported upcoming new researchers. We CITians are immensely glad to have you here, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes, sir. You can just start your presentation, sir.
Okay, so I'll put my video up and I'll start the lecture.
Sure, sir. Yes.
So very good morning to all of you. So today the title of my talk is on tissue engineering and organ printing. Okay. So as an outline of my talk, I'll be talking about what is tissue engineering and how we can apply nanotechnology in tissue engineering. And I would also talk about artificial cells. So can we make artificial RBC to overcome some of the diseases, and how we can apply these artificial cells in various disease models. Okay. And finally, I'll also talk about organ printing and what is the role of nanotechnology in the organ printing. So if you have any doubts or any queries, like you can note down the slide number, so we can discuss at the end of the talk. So before we talk about tissue engineering, so let us see why we need the tissue engineering and what is the statistics, the need for the organs today. For example, if you see the statistics, in US alone, approximately 1,20,000 people are dying every year, like due to lack of suitable organ. And every day, at least 22% are dying due to lack of suitable organ. Okay, so you can understand how much the scarcity for the suitable organ. Let us see the statistics in India. So if we see that almost 1.5 lakh people in India need a kidney, but only we are able to manage 3,000, and 90% of the people in the waiting list die due to non-availability of the suitable organ. And again, for example, if we, in case of liver transplantation, so we need at least 25,000, but what we get is only 800. And 70% of the liver transplant is mainly by the live donor. So from the person, we can take the liver and we can transplant it. But remaining 30% is from the cadaver donation, that is the brain dead person or the dead body. So we can take the liver within the particular amount of time and we can transplant to the patient, those who need the liver. So this is the major problem. Like we are not having sufficient donor and lack of suitable donor. Okay, so these are the major challenge if any organ fails. So when we have some organs, we don't know really the value of the particular organ. But when we lose the particular organ, then we really think about the how much worth it is. So let us see how much worth your human body is. If I ask you what is the cost of your mobile phone or what is the cost of your watch, you can simply say that this is 30,000 or 25,000. And if you ask you what is the cost of your liver and what is the cost of your kidneys, so no one can tell. Okay, but when we lose the organ, it is very, very difficult to get back. So our body is like a treasure. Okay, so we have to protect it very, very carefully. So according to this website, you can see how much your body is worth. Like bone is 3,600 pounds, and cornea is 15,000 pounds, and lungs this much, kidney. Okay, so even during my class lecture, I used to tell to my students, okay, don't complain to your parents that how much property you saved for me or anything, because they already gave this much amount worth property to you. And again, I also, when I teach to the faculties, I say that don't scold your children's, okay, worthless or useless. So they are this much worth and they are having this much amount of treasure, and like they can use it and they can make something better for the society and community. Okay. So you can see this, how much cost each and every organ it is. Okay. So once you lose the organ, it is very, very difficult to get those organ back. That is a major challenge. So that is the reason the new field called tissue engineering. It was it's not a really very new field. It's a old field. It was started 90s back. So this is the definition of tissue engineering. Tissue engineering is a interdisciplinary field. Okay, so it needs a combination of help from we need a help from the mechanical engineer, we need a help from electrical engineer people, and we need a help from biological engineers. Okay, it is a combination of all the engineering department. It is not only belongs to biotechnology or something related to cell biology. So we need a help from mechanical engineering. Suppose we are making artificial bone, we need the help from mechanical engineers. So they are going to tell the mechanical property of the bones and then whether it's suitable for transplantation or not. Okay, and again, similarly, we need a design engineer to make the design, the particular bone design and everything. So it is a multidisciplinary field. So as I told you, this why we need tissue engineering, because to replace the disease or damaged tissue, and we don't have sufficient donor. That is a major problem, and we want to minimize the immune system response by using our own cells. Okay, it is not like the shirt or pant we can borrow it from our friend and just we can wear it. What we do in our hostel days. So it is not like that. So if you want to take an organ, even if your close friend is ready to give an organ, it should match with your body. Okay, even if your close relative, it can be your parents or it can be your brother. Even if they want to donate the organ, they're ready to donate the organ, but it should match with your body system. So that is a major challenge here. So whenever you take any organ from the another patient, your body may not accept it. It will reject it immediately. So to minimize the immune system, the idea of tissue engineering is, can we take the cells from the patient's own body and we can regrow the tissue in the lab and we can implant into the patient body. So this is the approach. And for that, we are going to take the patient's own cell and we have to put it on a scaffold. Scaffold means support. Okay. And the scaffold should have a porous in nature so that it can allow the nutrients to go inside, and also it can allow the base material to go out of the scaffold support. So it can be act like a original organ. Okay, it is not like something extra artificial setup. So it can mimic exactly like your original organ. So this is a tissue engineering overview. So the first step is we have to take the cells from the patient's body and grow the cells in the lab condition. and make more amount of cells, then add it on the scaffold. So scaffold, as I told you, it is like a support. Suppose if you want to make like a kidney, so we need a scaffold like a kidney. Or if we want to make artificial skin, so we need a scaffold like support. So like for the building, if you're building a building, we need a foundation, right? It is like a foundation. On the foundation, top of the foundation, you will build the building. So similarly, it is like a foundation. So on the top of that, you can make the kidney or liver, whatever you want. Then once you grow that particular organ in the three-dimensional scaffold, then we can implant it into the patient's own body. So here we are taking the cells from the patient body and we are growing in the lab condition and we are putting back to the same patient. So in this case, the chance of immune rejection is very, very less. Okay. So that is, it is like altering your own cloth or pant and shirt and you are making it for the comfortable. Like, so whenever you become fat, you'll just make the adjustment and adjust your old pant and old shirt. It is similar to that. You take the cells from the patient's own body and regrow in the lab condition and put it back into the patient's cell. And the next question is why we need a three-dimensional scaffold. So usually in the lab, we grow the cells in this kind of two-dimensional plastic plates. But if you see that inside the body, we have all the organs are three-dimensional. Liver, heart, and all these organs are in three-dimensional. So we need a three-dimensional scaffold because the two-dimensional is not going to work in our human body. So these are the three important tools for the tissue engineering. The first one is cells. Okay. So what kind of cells we are going to take? That is very, very important. And next one is scaffold. So as I told you, the scaffold should be porous in nature and it should be able to enhance the cell attachment and growth. And usually it should be biodegradable and biocompatible. So what is the difference between biodegradable and biocompatible? So as you know, this biocompatible means it should be compatible to your body, biological system. And biodegradable means once your artificial tissue, artificial skin will be replaced after some time by the original skin. So once it is replaced, and this scaffold will be degraded. So when the scaffold gets degraded inside the body, it should not induce any toxic effect. So when the scaffold degrades inside the body, it should not induce any toxic effect. That is called as biodegradable. And third one is cell signaling, which I'll talk later in the next slide. So these are the three important requirements for any tissue engineering application. So the first thing, as I told you, is cell source. The cell source, it can be embryonic stem cells and it can be adult stem cells. So embryonic stem cells have a lot of ethical problems because for getting these embryonic stem cells, we have to take it from the embryo. So how do you get the embryo? We need the aborted fetus. So that's why most of the country, they ban this embryonic stem cell research. And adult stem cell, it is ethically safe and we can use it because we are going to take the cells from the patient's own body. Okay. And it has very less ethical and we can use it for various therapeutic applications. So this is the adult stem cell. And the scaffold, the ECM. ECM means extracellular matrix. Okay. So this is a scaffold. The scaffold can be made up of metal, ceramic, synthetic polymer or natural polymer. For example, if you are making a heart valve, we need a synthetic polymer because it should not degrade inside the body. And suppose you are making an artificial skin, okay, so that can be a natural polymer. After some time, then the natural polymer will degrade and it will be replaced by our original skin. And ceramics, in some case, some bones we can use the ceramic. And suppose if we are using some strong bones like hip joint or the knee joints, where we can use this metal because that need more amount. It has to bear more amount of weight. Okay, and it's need a more amount of strength material. So that's why we can use the metal like titanium. Okay, so when you replace the knee with the titanium, so the metal can be stay in your body for at least for 15 years. So the third important factor is growth factor. Okay, the growth factor, drugs, and mechanical forces. So how these mechanical forces plays an important role in tissue engineering and organ engineering. Okay, so you might have seen observed in the your hostel days, like the person staying in the same hostel, two boys. Okay, the person who goes to gym, he get very good muscular development, and the other person, those who didn't go to the gym, he'll be normal. Okay, so what is the reason? Like they're in the same hostel, they're eating the same food, but the person who is going to the gym, he is getting the very good muscular development. The reason is we are applying the mechanical force. So when you apply the mechanical force to your arms, okay, so what happened? It will induce the cells to produce the DNA, and the DNA will produce the protein, and it will express the mechanical signal is converted into chemical. So that is called as mechanotransduction. So that will make the tissues to grow, and that's why you are getting the arm development. And so it's like the mechanical force plays a major role in tissue growth. Okay, and drugs and growth factors. Okay, so when you add the drugs and growth factor to the stem cells, adult stem cells, so the stem cells can differentiate into liver or kidney cells. Okay, so the stem cells are like a seed. It is like from that we can get any kind of cells. Okay, so the growth factor and drugs are very, very important. So that will going to tell whether the stem cell is going to become a liver cell or kidney cell. So it is like you might have seen in the old movie. So twin brothers, they usually born, and they when they go for a train journey. So during the train journey, they get separated. Okay, and one will grow in the villain family and one will grow in the hero family. Even though both are identical twins, based on the environment, one will become a villain and one will become a hero. It is similar to that. The stem cells depends on the environment, depends on the growth factors, and depends on the drugs. The stem cells can become like a liver cells, or it can become like a kidney cell. Depends on the environment. So let us see what is stem cell. So as I told you, the stem cell is like your seed. When you put the seed, you will get the plant, you get the flower, you get the fruit, and again seeds. Okay. So similarly, the stem cells, from the stem cells, you can get any kind of cells, and also we can also regrow the stem cells. Okay. For example, stem cells are three types: totipotent, that is embryonic stem cell. From the totipotent stem cells, we can grow any kind of organ, any kind of cells. And pluripotent or multipotent, these are mesenchymal stem cells. It can be only multiple types. Okay. And unipotent is only one type of cells. So in our liver, in our kidney, we already have unipotent stem cells. Whenever any organ get damaged, kidney or liver, so this unipotent stem cells will go and repair it. Okay. So in this picture, you can understand this is unipotent stem cells. These are specialized stem cells, mainly in the adult liver or the kidney. Like these are only one type. And multipotent is multiple types. And this adult stem cell, which is safe to use. And totipotent, it can give rise to any kind of cells, but due to ethical reason, most of the country banned this research. The next one is scaffold. As I told you, the scaffold should be three-dimensional, and it should allow the nutrients to go inside, and it should allow the waste material to go out of that. It should be like a really porous in nature. So then only it can mimic like your original organ. Okay, so if you're making a scaffold out of plastic sheet and make artificial skin, it is not going to work out, because it is not going to release the sweat out of your skin. Okay, so it will be look like a plastic, so which we don't want. We want like it should be like a real original skin. So we have a lot of nano size pores in the skin. That's why we are getting the sweats out of the cells. Okay, so we want to mimic exactly like your original organ. That's why we need a scaffold with a porous in nature. So the scaffold can available in different textures and materials. We should encourage the cells to grow and allow the nutrients to permeate, and it should not harm the patient. Okay. So these are the steps in the tissue engineering. So these are the things, whatever I told you, like we need a scaffold, just add the cells and grow the cells in the lab, and we can implant the cells in the patient body. And in the tissue engineering, we are able to successful in making the artificial skin, artificial bone, and cartilage and intestine. Okay, these are less complicated organs, so we can easily make it in the lab. But some of the complicated organs like liver, heart, lung, kidney, still we are facing challenges. Okay, because these organs are very, very specialized organs. It has multiple types of cells, and the scaffold should shrink and expand. So that is a challenge in this making this kind of artificial organs. So let us see the example of skin tissue engineering. So during your childhood, when you fall down, so you'll be losing the tissue due to the wound. Okay, so when you get the wound and you just apply the antibiotic cream or whatever, then after that, sometime you will get the scar formation. So that scar formation become your identification mark in your all your school certificates, right? So how to prevent this scar? See, when you get the wound, this red color thing, you are losing this much amount of tissue. When you lose this much amount of tissue, what happens? And these two yellow colors will try come closer, and it will join together. So when you join together, due to the lack of this amount of tissue, you'll get the scar formation. So when you get a wound and this much amount of tissue is damaged, the red color one, so you can replace the same amount of tissue, artificial tissue or artificial skin. So then there won't be any scar formation. So how to make the repair the skin? There are two types. One is in vitro. In vitro is the lab condition. In vivo is inside the body or inside the living organism. So when you make the artificial tissue bilayer, just add this tissue bilayer into the like when make the cells artificial skin in the lab and implant into the patient body. So that is the one approach. The next approach is you put the scaffold and add the cells, and the cells will grow in the patient body itself, and it will replace the damaged skin. So this is the mouse model. When you cut the mouse with like 1 centimeter skin damage, then apply the scaffold. So when you apply the scaffold, you don't get any scar formation. But when you are not putting the scaffold, you get this kind of scar formation. So same thing, we can make a hole in the liver of the mouse and apply the scaffold, cylindrical scaffold, and seal the gap. So when you seal the gap, so the the damaged liver is repaired. So the next question is why we have to apply nanotechnology in tissue engineering. What is the role of nanotechnology in the tissue engineering? So initially, when the scientists started the research, they used the micropore scaffold. So when they use the micropore scaffold, what happens? The cell size is micrometer. So what happens? The cells are attaching to this scaffold, and there are a lot of micropore size gap. So if you have micropore size gap, it is really not going to useful, and it is going to damage the organ. And next one, they started with microfiber. So when they use the microfiber, again the cells are attaching on the fiber alignment. It is really not like a three-dimensional organ. There are a lot of gaps, micro size gaps. So that's why we have to use nanofiber scaffold. So the nanofiber scaffold, the fiber is in the range of nanometer and the cells is in the range of micrometer. So single cell can attach to thousands of nanofibers. So that is the advantage. So for example, below your skin, we have a network matrix. On the top of that, you are having the cells. So that's why the cells are growing very nicely and attached on make the complete three-dimensional structure. So below the skin, like or any organ, we have this kind of scaffold, this kind of foundation, extracellular matrix. These are like a nano network. So on the top of the nano network, we are having the cells, and cells are attached and growing. So that's why we are getting the complete three-dimensional organ. So you can see here, this is the nanofiber, and this black color is the cell. The single cell is attached to the thousands of nanofibers. So the single cell can contact thousands of nanofibers. So the transmission of signals are very, very good. How to make these nanofibers? There are three techniques: self-assembly, phase separation, and electrospinning. So in the self-assembly, it is similar to having what is that? You are having the hydrophilic head and hydrophobic tail. So you might have observed when you put a drop of oil on the water, you get this kind of circular structure, micellar structure, right? So why we are getting this micellar structure? When you put a drop of oil on the water, we have this hydrophilic head. The molecule which like the water, it will move towards the water, and the hydrophobic molecules, this is which hate the water molecule, that will try to go inside. So similarly, we can make a protein which have hydrophilic head and hydrophobic tail. And when you make that kind of protein in the nanostructure, when you apply when you put it into the water, what will happen? This head will move towards the water and the tail will move away from the water. So it forms like a nanofiber matrix. And when it forms like nanofiber matrix, on the top of that we can add a cell, and it can grow like a artificial skin or artificial tissue. So this is one approach to make that. And next approach is phase separation. So we can make a polymer, two different polymers, and when you heat the polymer, so one polymer will melt at one temperature, and the other polymer will melt at another temperature. So by using this phase separation, we can make this kind of porous matrix. So we can make this kind of porous matrix, and when you solidify, when the material is solidified, you'll get this kind of porous scaffold. So it can be a nanopore scaffold, or it can be micropore scaffold. Only we have to play with the parameters of the polymer and play with the parameters of the temperature. Another simple example to make this kind of porous scaffold is, so you might have tasted this chocolate chip cookies, right? So when you remove these chocolate chips from the biscuits, so you'll get this porous nature. Similarly, when you make this polymer, we can add the salt. Okay, so once the polymer is solidified, and you can dissolve the salt. When the salt is dissolved, you get this kind of porous scaffold. And the next approach is electrospinning, which is a widely accepted method and very, very simple method. To explain the concept of electrospinning, I'll use a simple example. The simple example is cotton candy. This cotton candy you might have seen in the most of the exhibitions. Okay, so how he make the cotton candy? He use the polymer solution. So what is the polymer solution here? Sugar. Sugar is the polymer, right? So he add the polymer solution here. And how this cotton candy is pink color? He is adding some food coloring agent, so that's why we are getting pink color. So instead of pink color, we are going to add drugs or growth factors, which will enhance the growth of the tissue. And instead of the sugar solution, we are going to add FDA approved polymer. So here we are getting these microfibers because he is going and collecting the fibers close to the nozzle. So here we'll get microfiber, but in the electrospinning we can get the nanofibers. Okay, so this is like a needle where you can apply the your polymer, add the polymer and apply the electrostatic potential. When you apply the electric field, you'll get this kind of nanofibers that can be collected in the collector. Okay, so you'll get these nanofibers. Similar, same to like a cotton candy. Here you will be using this FDA approved polymer and FDA approved drug, so you can make the final nanofiber mat. And the collector can be rotating drum collector. One is static collector and the other one is rotating drum. So in the rotating drum, it is like your when you play your kite, you use this kind of thread bundle, right? Similarly, this all these nano threads will be coiled around this collector. So when you make the align fibers, okay, so when you use the rotating drum collector, you get this kind of align fibers. And when you use a static or a stationary collector, you get this kind of random fibers. So it depends on the application, you can change the collector and you can make the nanofibers. So once you make the nanofibers, we have to implant into the body. So our body is like full of water, like hydrophilic. So it is advisable if you have a material, if it have hydrophilic in nature, that is really good. So how do you check this material is hydrophilic or hydrophobic? So it's very, very simple method. We can use this contact angle measurement. Okay. So what we are going to do, we are going to add a drop of water on the top of the scaffold. Okay. Just add a drop of water on this scaffold and take a photograph. And using the software, you can measure the angle. Okay. If the angle, the contact angle is less than 90 degrees, that means your material is hydrophilic. If it is more than 90 degrees, it is hydrophobic. And if it is more than 150, it is super hydrophobic. It is a simple example to understand. Like, for example, if you have a tissue paper, you just put a drop of water. The tissue paper will absorb the water. So the contact angle will be very less because it's hydrophilic. And when you put a water droplet on the plastic sheet, it won't absorb water. So the contact angle will be more than 90 or more than 150. So it is hydrophobic or super hydrophobic. So when you make the nanofiber mat, you can simply add the water and measure it. And we can also use these nanofibers for cancer therapy also. So we can make the core shell nanofibers. So the core and shell. So simple analogy to understand the core and shell is, it is like your pen and refill. So inside the refill, you can put one anti-cancer drug, and in the shell, you can put another anti-cancer drug. So this is the core, the blue color one, we can put one anti-cancer drug. The red color is the shell, where you can put another anti-cancer drug. So this is the core, and this is, blue color is the core and the red color is the shell. So we can load two type of anti-cancer drug, and your final product will be look like this. This is the nanofiber mat. Okay. So mainly when the patient go for a breast cancer surgery, when they remove the breast tumor, the main problem is the reoccurrence of tumor. If they're left with one or two cells, the one or two cells will regrow, and that will kill the again, that will regrow and make the patient again cancer. So that is a major challenge. So to overcome that drawbacks, we can make such kind of nanofiber based bandage. When you put this bandage, when you remove the breast tumor, so this nanofiber will act as a physical barrier. It will prevent the cancer metastasis, and it will also release the anti-cancer drug very, very slowly, and it will prevent the recurrence of tumor after the surgery. And the nanofiber is not only for biomedical application, it can also be useful for edible application. What is that? Test tube burger. So recently you might have heard about this lot of ethical issue in cutting the cows and goats, animals, slaughterhouse. There are a lot of issues. Okay. So and again, it has a lot of bio waste and a lot of pollution, environmental pollution, water and everything. So that's why can we make a test tube based burger? Like, can we grow this meat in the lab condition, similar to the artificial tissue, and can we make the edible meat? So this is a recent article published in the Nature. Okay, from the pig to plate. So from the pig, you can take the tissue and grow the tissue in the lab condition. Okay, and the tissue should be taste like really like your original pig tissues, right? So if you are tasting a leg piece, it should taste like a leg piece. It should not taste like some other meat. Otherwise, the consumer don't buy. So as I told you earlier, we have to give some mechanical force. Then only it can taste like a original meat. Okay, if you really want to taste like a leg piece, the legs undergo a lot of mechanical stress and mechanical exposure, right? Okay, so that's why when you grow the tissue in the lab, we have to put it in this kind of artificial setup where the muscles will be exercised. So when the muscles exercise in the artificial condition, it will boost up the protein. So when it boosts up the protein, it will be really taste like your leg piece. And you can add any ingredients like iron or vitamins, and we can enrich this edible meat, and it will be ready to cook and eat. Okay, it is like no need to cut the animals, and it can grow the tissue like a number of times, and it is very safe to. It's a kind of green meat, environmental friendly meat. Okay. So let us see what is artificial cells. So we have learned what is tissue engineering and what is artificial tissue. And artificial cells, these are like, it will replace the dysfunctional cells. Okay, it is like a kind of temporary solution. It is not like a permanent solution. And it is like, for example, if your scooter or two-wheeler is got punctured, so you are going to replace the tire. If the tire is blast or tube is blast, you are going to replace the tire or tube. You are not going to replace the complete scooter. It is similar to that. Suppose if any one particular type of cells are damaged, we can replace only the particular types of damaged cells. You don't have to replace the complete tissue or organ. So that is a concept behind these artificial cells. Okay, and it is like a really temporary solution. So this is a cell overview of animal cell. So it has a lot of components inside the cell. Cell is like a kind of nano factory. It is very difficult to replicate the cells. That's why initially scientists made can be encapsulate the cells into the artificial polymer. That was the idea started. So we can encapsulate the stem cells or the tissues into the scaffolds, and it can be micro or macro, and it can be also the nano dimension. We can load with the enzymes or peptides. So this is the basic principle of early artificial cells. Okay, so here we can add your cells inside the artificial polymer. So when you add the cells inside the polymer, our immune system cannot attack. At the same time, it can produce the required what is it, insulin or any kind of hormone. For example, if the person with the diabetic, if is not able to produce the sufficient amount of insulin, we don't have to replace the complete pancreas. So we can put these cells, pancreatic cells, which can produce insulin, into these artificial polymeric cells. Okay, so that cells will take up the glucose and it will produce the insulin, and it can be like a kind of temporary solution. So early days, the artificial cells started with the macro dimension, and now it reached to the nano dimension. And it is, as I told you earlier, it is like a temporary solution. It is not the permanent replacement, and it is mainly concerned with the single type of cells. Okay, not the complete organ or not the complete tissue. Yeah, as I told you earlier, this is like, for example, if we have any problem with the liver cells or in the pancreatic cells, we can put the pancreatic cells into the artificial cells, and these cells are protected into the artificial polymer, and it can secrete the insulin. Okay, and it can allow the glucose to go inside, and it can also secrete the insulin. So here the cells are safe, so our immune system cannot be attack this, and also it can release the insulin, and it can save the person. Okay, so we don't have to go for insulin injection every day. So we can inject these artificial cells once in a week or once in a month, and it can stay in your body, and it can release the insulin. How to make these artificial cells? Initially, scientists tried the single-step method. In the single-step method, what happened when you put the cells into the polymer? Some cells are exposed to the outside. So when it exposed to the outside, the polymer get damaged, the artificial cells get damaged. So to overcome that, so the scientists encapsulated these cells into these small artificial cells, and these small artificial cells are encapsulated into the big size artificial cells, where these polymers can be dissolved. So all the cells will be released into the big size artificial cells. So here you can see here, the cells are not exposed to the outside environment. So when it's not exposed, the immune system cannot attack the cells. And in some cases, even we don't need the complete artificial cells. We can go for the enzymes. Okay, some of the disease, we don't need the cells. It is due to lack of some of the enzyme. So in that case, we can encapsulate this enzyme. For example, this disease, phenylketonuria, that is due to this lack of this particular enzyme. So you might have seen that most of the sugar-free chewing gum and the sugar-free sweets, they usually mention not for children. Okay, if it is not for children, how the adult can eat? So why they are putting not for children? That means something, some chemicals which is not comfortable or not suitable for the children. And this, you might have seen that when you purchase a sugar-free chewing gum, they usually put in a very small font size. The person with a PKT should not consume this. What is that? Consume this sugar-free chewing gum because person with PKT disease, they don't have this enzyme. Okay, so sugar-free chewing gum or sugar-free sweets, it has a chemical. We don't have we don't have the enzyme to degrade those chemicals. So when you don't have that enzyme, it will accumulate in the body and it will attack the kidney or the liver. Okay, so that is another problem. And again, we can have this enzyme-based artificial cells, and these enzyme-based artificial cells can be useful for cancer therapy also, because some of the cancer, it need the enzyme to grow. So when you put these enzymes, that will go and block this, it will suppress the cancer growth, and also it will kill the cancer cells. How we can administer these artificial cells? We can use this 4 different routes. One is it can be injected, or it can be implanted, or it can be taken through orally. So then it will removed by the normal extraction mechanism, or it can be like kept it like a dialysis membrane. So the patient's body fluid will go and purify, and purified body fluid will come out. And another advantage of these artificial cells is nowadays the major commercial advertisement, if you see that reducing the bad cholesterol or the body weight and other things like. So this bacteria will remove all the bad cholesterol. So we can encapsulate this bacteria into the artificial cells, and it can remove the bad cholesterol. And once it is removed, then we can add the antibiotic and kill this bacteria. And next breakthrough in this artificial cells is artificial RBC. So the major drawback of RBC is like whenever the person donates the blood, they cannot store the blood for not more than 42 days in all the blood donation bank. After that 42 days, they will have to burn that. Okay, they have to incinerate it. They cannot keep it. Okay, and they have to store it in a very cold condition, storage condition, and it's highly expensive. And we can maximum store the plasma for a year. Okay, so and again we have to go with a suitable blood group. Okay, so whether if the A blood group can give to A, something like that. Okay, and these are the challenges. The blood group also we can give only to the particular types of person. So to overcome that, we can make the artificial blood. Okay, so what is the main function of blood? It carries the oxygen, and also it also removes the carbon dioxide from the body. So can we make artificial RBC using this hemoglobin? So we can make the we can get the hemoglobin, and this hemoglobin can be packed in an artificial polymer, and that can be lyophilized. Lyophilized means freeze dried. So that can be freeze dried and made like a powder, and this dried powder can be carried anywhere. Okay, no need to store in the like a fridge or any temperature. It is like a glucose packet. You carry the powder, and whenever you need the blood, you can dissolve in the saline, and your blood is ready. You can inject into the human body. So mainly it is useful for the warfare, and also the person who faced an accident, and if we have any rare blood groups, we can use this kind of artificial RBC. Here the advantage is it has a high oxygen carrying capacity, and it don't have any blood group antigens. When it don't have any blood group antigen, so any persons can take this. Okay, and another thing is it has a longer half-life. Okay, you don't have to store in the 4 degree or -20, and it is not toxic, and there is no need to worry about HIV or anything. Okay, so that is the advantage of this artificial RBC. And how to make this artificial RBC? You just take the RBC and put into water. So when you put into water, RBC will blast, and it will release the hemoglobin. So the next question is, can we inject the hemoglobin directly? Because not possible. Because when you inject the hemoglobin directly, what happens? This hemoglobin will break into dimer, and this dimer will go and block your capillary pores. When it blocks the capillary pores, and the person will die immediately due to the cardiac arrest. Okay, so that's why you might have observed in the hospital also, when they inject the medicine, they just make sure that there is no air bubble in the syringe. Okay, they just tap it and release a little amount of medicine, and they put the injection. If there's single air bubble, that can kill you. So that's why they make sure that there is no air bubble. So this is original RBC. So original RBC problem is we have a blood group. We cannot give it to all the persons, and we have to store maximum for 42 days and for 4 degrees Celsius. And here we can store for n number of years, and no blood group antigen we can give to any person. Okay, and no need to worry about HIV or any other virus infection. And again, the size is very, very important. When you make any artificial RBC or nano, the particle size is very, very important. So if you are making a nanomaterial between 70 to 200, it is fine. If it is less than 70, it will be removed by liver. If it is more than 200, it will be removed by the spleen. So we have to make the artificial RBC which is in size. So we can increase the circulation time by adding the polyethylene glycol group. And also this is the artificial RBC which is in the range of size 7 to 8 micrometer. And artificial RBC, if you see that, it is in the range of 80 to 200 nanometer. And it is this artificial RBC, not only the function is to carry the oxygen, it also should remove the carbon dioxide. So along with the hemoglobin, we can add this enzyme. When you add this enzyme, it will remove the carbon dioxide from your body. And the another function of RBC is it should remove the free radical in your body. So we can add this kind of enzymes so that can remove the free radicals from your body. So it can mimic exactly like your original RBC, or it can function better than your original RBC. So how it can function better than your original RBC? Because we can add more amount of hemoglobin in a single artificial cell. When you add more amount of hemoglobin in a single artificial cell, it can have more oxygen carrying capacity. So if it have more oxygen carrying capacity, we can use it for treating this kind of disease like ischemia. So where due to lack of oxygen, our original RBC cannot enter. So the RBC size is 7 to 8 micrometer, it cannot enter. But polyhemoglobin, the nano RBC can easily enter, and it can supply the oxygen, and it can helpful in curing the disease. And next thing is it can be also useful for cancer therapy. The cancer, the tumor, it will grow very, very tightly, and more number of cells will divide and grow very tightly. So when you go for radiation therapy, the radiation need oxygen. Then only the radiation therapy can be successful. So our original RBC, it cannot go into the tumor. Okay, so that is a major problem because the size is 7 to 8 micrometer. But this nano RBC, the size is smaller. It can easily go into the tumor region, and when we apply the radiation, it can destroy the cells, and it can also cure the cancer by adding this enzyme. And next application is we can also use it for hemoperfusion. So hemoperfusion means removal of toxic substance from the blood of a patient. It is similar to your artificial kidney. Okay, so dialysis. You might have seen this. The person undergoing dialysis, they may be having this much amount of big size machine. So the patient's body fluid will go here and it will be purified, and the blood will go here, purified, and the purified blood will be again go into the patient's body. So this is the artificial kidney. You can see here how much small your kidney organ, but when you make it artificially, this is this much big. Okay, and it is very, very difficult to carry this much big amount of size artificial kidney, and also it will be difficult for the patient to stay in the hospital for a long time. So to overcome that, we can make this kind of artificial cells, which can be loaded with 70 grams of activated cells containing activated charcoal. So this charcoal will remove all the toxic material from the blood, and it can be work like an artificial kidney machine. So the patient's blood will go here, and the purified blood will go back to the patient. And another breakthrough in the research in this field is artificial sperm. So due to the change in the lifestyle and food habits, the infertility number of cases are increased. Okay, so after 5 years or 10 years, this is going to hit the all the young people. Okay, so the infertility rate is going to be very, very high. So that's why the Australian scientists, they made the artificial sperm by using these skin cells, and they're also in the process of developing the artificial eggs. Okay. So due to the change of lifestyle and change of food habits, and we have started exposed to different kind of chemicals, so that leads to the infertility. Okay. So let us see what is the organ printing and what is the role of nanotechnology in the organ printing. So this organ printing is similar to your 3D printing technology. Okay. So where you can print your organs. So to grow the organs or tissue, it takes more time. So can we increase the faster rate by using this kind of 3D printer? So it is similar to your inkjet printer. Here, instead of using this ink, we are going to use the cells. The cells are going to act as a bio ink, and instead of using the paper, we are going to use the bio paper. So on the top of the bio paper, we are going to print the artificial cells. So this is a conceptual printer. Somehow this animation is not working. So this printer is going to print the organ. So this is a conceptual bio printer. So how we can make this artificial tissue? These are the steps to make the artificial tissue. So the first step is imaging. So if you want to make a heart or liver, we have to image using these imaging softwares like imaging devices like X-ray, CT scan. Then using the CAD software, you can design this, and we have to select the material. We want to use synthetic or natural polymer. Then again, as I told you, whether we have to select the stem cells, adult stem cells or embryonic stem cell. Then you have to select the suitable printer. There are 3 types of bioprinters. Then once you print it, then you can make the complete artificial organ, and which we can grow in the artificial environment and just check it before we implant the organ into the human body. So the same thing whatever I told in the picture is the text material. The first step, there are 3 steps in the organ printing: pre-processing, processing, and post-processing. In the pre-processing, as I told you, like first step is to do the imaging. The first step is to do the imaging, bioimaging. So once you do the imaging, so you'll get the blueprint. Okay. So once you get the blueprint, then you can print the particular using the 3D bioprinter. So printing that, we need the second step that is called processing. So we need the bio paper and also the bio ink. Okay. So the bio paper is like your collagen or any matrix. On top of that, you can print the bio ink. So the bio ink will print it like a small 3-dimensional spheroids. And once it is formed like this kind of dot, and these dots will be connected and form like a complete tissue. And once it forms like complete tissue, this bio paper can be removed. Usually the bio papers are temperature sensitive or pH sensitive. So when you apply the different temperature, this bio paper will melt. Or when you apply the different pH, the bio paper will melt. So when the bio paper is removed, these cells will attach, join together, and form the complete this kind of 3-dimensional tissues. Okay. So the bio ink will print like this kind of ring-like structure, and the next layer will be printed on the top of that. So it will be like a layer by layer. So once it is printed, all the layer will be removed, and all the cells will be fused and form this kind of tubular structure. So as I told you, it can be thermo-reversible gel or it can be pH reversible gel. So once the printing is done, we can remove the bio paper by changing the temperature. And next one is the bioprinter. There are 3 types of bioprinters. Okay. So I will discuss that in later. And bio ink. So most of the lab, they use collagen or fibrin because it has a very good biocompatibility and very easy to modify by chemical method. So that most of the research group, they use this as a bio ink. And next one, what they use is pH based or pH sensitive or thermosensitive biopaper, as I told you earlier. So we can, after the end of the process, we can dissolve the biopaper by changing the pH or the temperature. And there are 3 types of bioprinter: inkjet or extrusion or laser assisted. So the inkjet printer is like a normal your inkjet printer. It will put the dots, and these dots of cells will fuse and form the final tissue. And extrusion printer, it's like your toothpaste. So it will make like a cell paste. Okay, cell along with the collagen matrix, it make like a 3-dimensional structure. And the laser assisted printer, so the cells are loaded in this. It is like similar to a laser printer. So based on the design, whatever you are doing, so it can make a heart or liver. So the laser pulse will go and give the signal. So the cells will be released and make the final tissue. So this is a comparison chart. You can see here the cell viability is more in the inkjet and in the laser jet when compared to the micro extrusion, where 40 to 80%. So, but the laser is very expensive. So most of the lab use this inkjet. Okay. So it depends on the application. We can select the bioprinter. And third step is post-processing. So once we made the complete organ, so before we implant into the human body, again this animation is not working here. So what you have to do, you have to put it into the bio incubator, and we have to make sure that the heart is able to shrink and expand and it's able to pump the blood. So everything should be checked in the lab condition. That is the post-processing step. So before we implant the organ. So once the organ is ready, then only we can implant it. So to make the heart to beat, okay, to pump the blood, so we can use this kind of spider web-like sensors or electrodes. So for this, we need the help of electrical engineers. So that will make the heart to make pump the blood. Okay. So this prototype is already made by the scientists, and they use in the rabbit heart. It is successful in the rabbit, and they're trying to use it for the humans also. And when I talk about this organ printing, it is very simple to make the skin and cartilage. It's very easy to print the skin and cartilage in the lab, and it is already successful, and it's already available commercially also. Okay, and trachea and these blood vessels is very easy to make. But when you talk about the solid organ like kidney, okay, kidney or heart, as I told you, these are very, very challenging organ because it has multiple types. Okay. Okay. So it has multiple types of organ, and it will be difficult to print that organ, and also it takes more time. It will difficult to print the organ. So why it is difficult to print the organ? The challenges in printing these organs are we don't have how to print the tiny blood vessels. Okay, because this heart and liver and kidney, it has a lot of tiny blood vessels. So how to mimic those tiny blood vessels? So that is a challenge. So it is very difficult to create the blood vessels, and also it have lot of specialized functions. Okay. So the scientists got the idea. They used the sugar template. So using the sugar template, they made this nanofibers network, and they made artificial blood vessels. But again, the challenge is like after sometimes it creates a problem. Okay, so these are the challenges in developing this artificial kidney or artificial liver. Still, it is not addressed. That's why we are not able to make the artificial sugar. Sorry, artificial liver or artificial kidney organ. So let us see how this nanotechnology can help in the organ printing. So we can make these artificial cells, and we can make like a Janus particle. Janus particle means it will have a two or more physical property, this particle. So when you make these tissue spheroids, like three-dimensional tissue spheroids, one side the red color can be magnetic nanoparticle, the green color can be the cells. So when you print it like this kind of Y shape, so this is the time 0 hour. So you can see here after 14 hours, it is fused and formed like this kind of scaffold, Y-like tissue. Okay. So by using this external magnetic field, we can assemble this structure, and these structures can fuse and form the final tissue like this. And we can also use this robotic arms, and we can print it, and we don't have to take it to the hospitals. We can have this portable printer. So whenever doing the warfare and any patient suffering any burn or wound, we can have this handheld bioprinter, and we can print it directly on the wound, and that will rapidly cure the wound. And another breakthrough by using this nanotechnology is like whenever any person undergo brain dead or dead due to accident, we have to donate the organ within 4 hours. Okay, the organs can be stable only for 4 hours. Okay, so that is a major problem. So can we store the organ for more time? So here we can use this silica nanoparticle, silica coated ionized nanoparticle. So that will use the that will protect the organ from freeze drying, and it will protect the organ by principle called nano warming. So using that, we can keep the organ for more time, and it can be implanted later. And this person, he come up with a totally new idea. So instead of making the completely new organ or a new tissue, which is a very complicated process, can we refurbish the old organ? It is like refurbishing the old home and making the new home instead of destroying completely and making a new home. So we can take the heart from the dead body, okay, the person, and we can remove all the cells by injecting this detergent. When you inject this detergent, the detergent will go and remove all the cells, okay, and it will remove, and it will leave only the scaffold. And when it leave only the scaffold, we can inject the patient cells, and when you inject the patient cell and grow the organ in the lab condition, and it can be like a complete heart or complete organ, and where you can put the electrical stimulation and make the heart muscles to contract on their own. Okay, it can be like a complete artificial organ. So the another group, they studied using this spinach leaf. So when they use the spinach leaf and destroy the cells, okay, using the detergent, you can see here this is like a spinach leaf. which is having only the kind of blood veins, and they are able to grow the heart cells on the top of that, and they are able to make the beating heart cells on the top of the spinach leaf. So this spinach leaf blood veins, so the veins can be used like a kind of artificial blood veins for human body. So we can use this as a kind of scaffold, and these are the various research which is ongoing to make the to mimic exactly like your original organ. Okay, so the 3D printing and other advancement in this field, it can bypass the organ donor list, and also it can reduce the cost of the organ, and again it can overcome the difficulties and limitation which is presently we are facing, and which can increase the patient's life by making these artificial skin and artificial organs. Okay, and this is a small contribution from our lab. Like we made a 4-dimensional scaffold. So most of the scaffolds are static, 3-dimensional, which cannot expand or shrink. So we made a 4-dimensional scaffold. This scaffold can shrink and expand. So we can grow the liver cells, heart cells, or lung cells, and before we take it the research to the animal model, we can try in this artificial in vitro condition, and we can take it for the further application. And also, I am teaching one course in NPTEL Biomedical Nanotechnology. So the course registration is already started, and if anyone interested in joining this course, you can register yourself in the Biomedical Nanotechnology course. The course registration is already started, and if you're interested, you can join this course. Thank you all. Thank you all for your patience and listening. And I'll be happy to answer a couple of questions.
Yes, sir. Hello, can you hear me, sir?
Yes.
Yes, sir.
Sorry, I have to rush the slides because I have another important meeting at 10:30. So due to shortage of time, I rushed some of the slides. I'll share the slides. If anyone have any queries, they can interact with me also later. And if you have any questions, I can take up some questions now for discussion.
Yes. So we have a few questions, sir. Shall I summarize users? A few questions.
Yeah.
Mr. Chandru has asked how much sample need for use for the application part?
For which application part? For the humans organ.
In general, yes.
Yeah,
Yes,
we can put the syringe in the joints, bone joints, and we can take, when we get millions of cells, and millions of cells we can grow in the lab, and we can multiply the number of cells, and that can be implanted. So that's why we are, even if you take 10,000 cells, that is more than sufficient. We can grow in the lab more number.
Yes, sir. So can you switch on your video, sir, so that the participants can see your visual presence, if possible? Yes, thank you, sir. And Mr. Gurumurthy Raman has asked, scientists are struggling to produce artificial animal-based cell than plant-based cell. Can you explain what are the problems the scientists are facing? Scientists are struggling to produce artificial animal-based cell than plant-based cell. So what are the problems the scientists will be facing?
Yeah, so the animals, as I told you, it has it's a really complicated system. So as I told you, it has blood veins and the multiple types of cells. For example, kidney also there are at least 3 to 4 types of cells, and it has a lot of blood veins. So it is very difficult to mimic those blood veins and mimic those multiple types of cells. So that is the challenge. In plant, it is very simple because if you want to make a root, we can make it root in the lab condition, and if you want to make only the particular tissue, we can make in the lab condition. Okay. Even plant also the success rate is very, very less. Lab level it is successful. So if you see the transgenic plant, it is very, very numbers are very few.
Yes, sir. Thank you, sir. And we'll take 2 more questions, sir. Mr. M. Venkatesh has asked, how effectively artificial food are good for human health? Whether it has any drawbacks?
Yeah, this is like again a double-sided sword. So any new technology, it has its own advantage and drawback. So now they are claiming that it is like free from, see, whenever you take animals source, you have high chance for virus transmission, and also high chance for some other disease, and a lot of ethical issues also when you kill the animal. but here we are not killing the animal and it is a sterile environment. So it can be, we can say the advantages, it can be like a micro free or virus free, and the drawback is we don't know. So when you consume the food for at least for 10 years or 5 years, we don't know the long term effects. So when the plastic came to the market, everybody started using it, but problem is we started overusing the plastics, so that created a problem. So anything overused will create a problem. So when you consume everything in a optimum amount, hopefully it should not create any problem.
Yes, I will take up the last question, sir. Mr. Manikandan has asked how the nanoparticles are implanted into the tissue. Is there any special mechanism for that?
So when you make the tissue,
How the nanoparticles?
yeah, when you make the bio cement, there is a bio ink, okay, for making the cells. Along with that, you can add the magnetic nanoparticle. So that it is like a kind of simple mixing only, slurry mixing. Okay, and when you mix it and when you apply the external magnetic field, it automatically assemble and form the final structure.
Yes, sir.
And someone has
Thank you,
asked
sir.
if
On behalf of Chennai Institute of Technology.
yeah, fine.
Yes, sir.
No, someone asked where are these adult stem cells are present. So these adult stem cells are mainly present in this joint. Like most of the joint, we can put the needle and we can take out the stem cells. Okay, and again, you might have heard about this stem cell banking. So whenever the baby born, like we can store the placenta stem cells. Okay, we can store the placenta, and placenta stem cells also we can go for stem cell therapy. So if anyone is expecting a baby, anyone is relative, so you can store your placenta stem cell, and it can store for more than 30 to 40 years. Okay, so you can check it. Some of the company they are commercially doing it, so you can check it also. Placenta stem cell banking. And someone is asking, is this scaffolding is similar to
Thank you,
modeling
sir.
clay?
Thank you for being patient.
Yeah, so it is similar to modeling clay only. So it is like you can use that clay and you can make any kind of design. Similarly, it's like a bio ink and bio cement. So using that, you can make any kind of structure. Okay. Thank you all. Yes.
Yes. On behalf of Chennai Institute of Technology, we thank you, sir, for spending your valuable time for us. And it is an emerging topic. Will definitely make us to focus on it and start our research further. Thank you very much, sir.
And thank you, CIT, for providing me this opportunity. And thank you all the participants for your patience. I'll share the slides to the CIT team. They will forward you. Once again, I apologize. Like I have another important meeting at 10:30. So due to that, I have to really go rush the slides, and I'm not able to answer some of the questions due to shortage of time. Okay. Feel free to mail me so I can answer. And also, if you're interested more in this course, you can register for this NPTEL Biomedical Nanotechnology course. So I'll share the slides. This is a self-explanatory slides. You can read it and you can easily understand. So the slides have all the content, and I made it the content in a very, very simple term. So any layman can easily read and understand. Okay. So see you again in the next talk. Okay. Thank you all.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
And thank you, participants.